boys and girls. Today, with talking about our fairy tales, we are going to try a different type of fairy tale. The two that I have read you so far fit this pretty well, right? They had Once Upon a Time or Happily Ever After. There was definitely royalty, definitely wicked characters, right? Like in that Rumpelstiltskin, that wicked character was Rumpelstiltskin himself, right? His magic was spinning the straw into gold. The problem was that it honestly started with the miller lying, because if that didn't happen, nothing else would have been a problem. And then it became a new problem where the miller's daughter had to always spin the straw into gold, right? The solution was Rumpelstiltskin helping, but that created another problem, didn't it? So this one had lots of kind of problems and solutions. The ultimate solution being that the now queen, because she became the queen, was able to figure out Rumpelstiltskin's name and didn't have to give up her baby, right? But that was happening in a kingdom, which a lot of them do, happily ever after. You could say that the queen was happily ever after. I don't know if she really ever wanted to marry the king, but at least she still has her child, right? And she's not a poor miller's daughter. But all of those stories, the other one, Puss in Boots, right? Magic, kingdoms, royalties, wicked characters like the big giant, and magic. Well, remember how I told you down here on the poster that fairy tales also kind of have these other types that still fit a little bit? And the last part, I'm trying to make my camera show you, is the rule of three. So some fairy tales that maybe don't have all of these things have the rule of three. That can also fit. Those I tend to call folk tales, okay? Instead of a fable, instead of a fairy tale, I tend to call them folk tales. Something with the rule of three. There usually is a lesson and there usually is some type of conflict. But not always royalty, not always magic, not always wicked characters. So I'm gonna read you a classic example of a folk tale that is kind of fits under the category of fairy tales, but doesn't have these things. And I'm gonna read you this version of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I'm starting with this because next week's Dr. Seuss week, so we're gonna take a break from this and read some Dr. Seuss books, but then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna be teaching you about different versions of some stories that are kind of fun. So let me go ahead and start with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I will have you fill in the fairy tale anchor chart with this one because I think you're going to notice that some of these things are not in this story. And so if that's true, you can just X them out, okay? So here we go. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once there were three bears who lived in a neat little house deep in the woods. Ooh, I see once. It's almost Once Upon a Time, isn't it? It starts with once. That fits a fairy tale. All right. The great big bear was Papa Bear. He had a loud, growly voice. And the middle-sized bear was Mama Bear. And she had a sweet, low voice. And the smallest bear was Baby Bear. And he had a high, squeaky voice. Every morning, the bears had breakfast together. They each had their own bowl, which they filled to the top with hot porridge. There was a great big bowl for Papa Bear. There was a middle-sized bowl for Mama Bear. And there was a little bowl for Baby Bear. After breakfast, the bears rested in the living room. They each had their own chair to sit on. There was a great big chair for Papa Bear. There was a middle-sized chair for Mama Bear, and there was a little chair for the Baby Bear. The bears sat in their chairs and talked about how nice and quiet their cozy little house was. In the evenings, the bears were sleepy. They went upstairs to their cozy bedroom. They each had their own bed to sleep in. There was a great big bed for Papa Bear. There was a middle-sized bed for Mama Bear, and there was a little bed for Baby Bear. Papa Bear snored loud, growly snores. Mama Bear snored sweet, low snores. And Baby Bear snored high, squeaky snores. One morning, the bears found that the porridge was too hot to eat, so they went for a walk in the woods to let their breakfast cool. That same morning, a little girl named Goldilocks went out early to pick flowers for her mother. She walked farther and farther into the woods until she came upon the neat little house. Hungry and tired, Goldilocks knocked on the door. "I wonder who lives here," she thought, but no one answered. Something smelled good. Goldilocks went inside and saw there were 3 steaming bowls on the table. She ate a spoonful from the great big bowl, but the porridge was too hot. She ate a spoonful from the middle-sized bowl, but the porridge was too cold. Then Goldilocks ate from the smallest bowl, and the porridge was just right. She ate spoonful after spoonful until the porridge was all gone. Goldilocks was tired from walking so far, and she wanted to rest. She looked around for a nice chair. In the living room, she saw 3 chairs. First, Goldilocks sat in the great big chair, but it was too hard. Next, Goldilocks sat in the middle-sized chair, but it was too soft. Then, Goldilocks sat in the smallest chair, and it was just right. But crash! The bottom broke, and whack! The back snapped. Goldilocks fell to the floor with a thump. The little chair was smashed. Now Goldilocks was really tired. She walked upstairs and peeked into the cozy bedroom. 3 beds stood neatly against the wall. "I'll just lay down right here," said Goldilocks. First, she climbed into the great big chair or bed, but it was too hard. Next, she climbed into the middle-sized bed, but it was too soft. Then she climbed into the smallest bed. That felt just right. Goldilocks snuggled under the quilt and soon fell fast asleep. A short time later, the bears came home. They thought their porridge must be cool enough to eat now. Papa Bear looked in his bowl and frowned. "Somebody has been eating my porridge," he said in his loud, growly voice. Next, Mama Bear looked in her bowl. "Somebody has been eating from my porridge," she exclaimed in her sweet, low voice. And then Baby Bear turned his empty bowl upside down. "Somebody's been eating my porridge," he squeaked, "and it's all gone." Papa Bear walked into the living room. His chair had been moved. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," he said in his loud, growly voice. Next, Mama Bear saw the flat cushions on her chair. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," she exclaimed in her sweet, low voice. And then Baby Bear found his little chair smashed to pieces. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," he squeaked, "and now it's broken." The bears went upstairs. Papa Bear saw that the pillow on his bed had been moved. "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed," Papa Bear said in his loud, growly voice. And next, Mama Bear looked at her bed and saw that the covers had been messed up. "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed," she exclaimed in her sweet, low voice. And then Baby Bear looked at his bed. A little girl with golden curls lay fast asleep upon his bed. "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed," squeaked Baby Bear, "and there she is." Goldilocks woke up at the sound of Baby Bear's high, squeaky voice, and she rubbed her eyes. The 3 bears stood over her. "Oh my, cried Goldilocks. Frightened, she jumped out of Baby Bear's bed and dashed downstairs. Goldilocks ran out the front door and into the woods as fast as her legs could carry her. The three bears never saw Goldilocks again. Their little house deep in the woods remained peaceful, and their porridge, well, it was just right. All right, so my poster fell. Let's stick it back up. So, in this story, there is a setting. You shouldn't have a hard time with that. There are definitely characters. The problem, that's kind of tricky. Think about that. I think you could put a few things that I'd be okay with. The solution, also a few things that I could be okay with. Magical elements. I didn't see any magic in here. Happily ever after, I think you could show that they lived happily ever after. It doesn't have a spot for a lesson, but think about that for a little bit. Is there maybe a lesson learned in this story? And who learned it? Was it the bears or was it Goldilocks? Maybe both.